History is often a story of revenge. For Rome, nothing stung more than the Teutoburg Forest disaster in 9 AD, where 3 legions were wiped out by Arminius, a former Roman ally turned Germanic chieftain. The defeat was a national trauma, a stain on Rome's honor that demanded vengeance. The task fell to Germanicus, nephew and adopted son of Emperor Tiberius, who launched a series of campaigns into Germania starting in 14 AD. His goal: punish the tribes, recover lost legionary eagles, and restore Roman pride. Germanicus's early expeditions were a mix of hard-won victories and near disasters, but he managed to recover 2 eagles and inflict several defeats on the tribes. The terrain was brutal. Dense forests, swamps, and elusive enemies made every step a challenge. By 16 AD, Germanicus had forced Arminius into a final stand after a previous Roman victory at Edistoviso. Arminius, wounded but unbroken, rallied his forces for one last desperate defense. For Germanicus, this was the moment to crush Germanic resistance and secure his legacy. The upcoming battle would decide not just the campaign, but the fate of Rome's northern frontier. The Battle of the Angrivarian Wall was more than a fight. It was a clash of titans, with the future of Germania and Roman honor at stake. For Arminius, it was a last gamble for freedom. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo through history. After his defeat at Edistoviso, Arminius needed a way to neutralize Rome's superior infantry. He chose the border of the Angrivarian tribe, whose lands offered the perfect defensive position. Here, the Germanic tribes built the Angrivarian Wall, a massive earthwork blocking a narrow passage between forest and swamp. The wall funneled the Romans into a bottleneck, negating their flanking tactics. Topped with a wooden palisade, it was simple but brutally effective. Arminius positioned his warriors behind the wall, ready to rain down spears and arrows on any attackers. The plan: bleed the legions, break their morale, and turn Rome's discipline into a liability. The wall was both a physical and psychological barrier, a message to Germanicus: this far, no further. For the tribes, it was their last hope for independence. The stage was set for a desperate defense. Germanicus commanded a massive force, 8 legions, auxiliaries from across the empire, archers, cavalry, and a fleet of over 1,000 ships. His army, up to 80,000 strong, was a disciplined war machine. The legionaries excelled in close combat, while auxiliaries and cavalry provided flexibility and scouting. Facing them was Arminius's coalition, fierce, lightly armored warriors from various tribes, united by a charismatic leader and a shared hatred of Rome. Outnumbered and less organized, the Germans relied on ambushes, terrain, and ferocity. Their strength was in defense and their knowledge of the land. Arminius's challenge was to hold his fragile alliance together and exploit every Roman weakness. The warriors fought for their chiefs and freedom, not for a state. If the battle turned, they might break and flee. At the Angrivarian Wall, Arminius gambled everything on courage and the strength of his position. The Romans brought overwhelming force, the Germans desperate resolve. The outcome would hinge on leadership and tactics. Germanicus knew a frontal assault on the Angrivarian Wall would be costly. He devised a classic Roman plan attack from multiple directions to overwhelm the defenders. First, his legions advanced directly at the wall, pinning Arminius's main force. Archers and slingers provided covering fire, trying to suppress the defenders. Meanwhile, cavalry under Stertinius attempted a risky flanking maneuver through the swamp, aiming to strike the Germans from behind. A third force, likely light infantry, moved through the dense forest to add another threat. The plan was a hammer and anvil infantry held the enemy in place, while cavalry and light troops struck from the flanks and rear. Timing and coordination were crucial. Germanicus gambled on surprise and flexibility to break the Germanic line. The stage was set for a complex, high-stakes assault. Success would mean total victory, failure, disaster. The fate of the campaign hung in the balance. The battle erupted as Roman archers and slingers unleashed a storm of missiles at the wall. Legionaries advanced in tight formation, shields overhead in the testudo, braving a hail of Germanic spears. At the base of the wall, chaos reigned. Romans struggled to scale the rampart as defenders fought with savage determination. The confined space favored the Germans, and the Roman assault stalled. For a moment, it seemed the wall would hold. Then Stertinius's cavalry burst from the swamp, catching the Germans completely off guard. Panic spread as Roman horsemen charged into the rear, cutting down defenders. The Germanic line collapsed, warriors fleeing in all directions. Arminius, wounded, barely escaped the encirclement. With their leader gone, the Germanic army broke. The Romans surged over the wall. The slaughter was merciless. The trap had closed, and the Germanic coalition was annihilated. Germanicus's plan had worked to perfection. The Roman victory at the Angrivarian Wall was total. Arminius's army was destroyed, trapped between infantry and cavalry with nowhere to run. Tacitus describes a battlefield littered with bodies and weapons for miles. The Romans, still bitter over Teutoburg, showed no mercy. Germanicus's coordinated attack minimized Roman losses and shattered the Germanic resistance. The Angrivarii tribe, whose land hosted the wall, surrendered fully to Rome. The victory sent a clear message: resistance was futile. Germanicus erected a trophy of captured weapons, dedicating it to Tiberius and Mars, a symbol of Roman dominance. With Arminius on the run, Germanicus had avenged Varus and restored Roman honor. It seemed the conquest of Germania was within reach, but fate had other plans. At the height of his triumph, Germanicus received a shocking order from Emperor Tiberius: end the campaign and return to Rome. To Germanicus and his men, the order was baffling. Arminius was defeated, the tribes were surrendering, and victory seemed assured. But Tiberius, cautious and pragmatic, saw the German campaigns as a costly drain on Rome's resources. Years of war had consumed men and money, with little to show for it beyond vengeance. Tiberius argued that Roman honor was restored, the lost eagles recovered, and the Rhine was a defensible frontier. Holding Germania would mean endless conflict in hostile, unfamiliar terrain. Some suggest Tiberius also feared Germanicus's growing popularity. Whatever the reasons, strategy, cost, or politics, the decision was final. The legions withdrew to the Rhine. The dream of conquering Germania was over. The frontier was set, and Rome's ambitions stopped at the river. The war's end would shape Europe for centuries. The Roman withdrawal set the Rhine as the empire's permanent frontier for 4 centuries. Germania remained unconquered, developing its own culture and identity apart from Rome. The Limes Germanicus, a fortified border, became one of the ancient world's most militarized zones. Rome shifted from conquest to containment, using diplomacy and trade to manage the tribes. For the Germans, independence allowed their society to flourish, and their memory of resistance to endure. The failure to conquer Germania had lasting consequences. Centuries later, Germanic tribes would cross the Rhine and help bring down the Western Roman Empire. The descendants of Arminius's warriors would one day rule former Roman lands. The decision to retreat in 16 AD echoed through history. The destinies of Rome and Germania would remain forever intertwined. The Angrivarian Wall is the story of 2 remarkable leaders, Germanicus and Arminius. Germanicus, a brilliant general, avenged Rome's humiliation and was adored by his men. Had he not been recalled, he might have conquered Germania and changed history. Arminius, the great liberator, united the tribes and made conquest too costly for Rome. Though he lost the battle, he won the war for Germanic freedom. Both men died young, their legends growing after death. The battle itself was a tactical masterpiece for Germanicus, but a strategic victory for Arminius. It proved that winning a battle doesn't always mean winning the war. The campaign of 16 AD was a clash of worlds, Rome's discipline versus Germanic resilience. The wall was breached, but the spirit of Germania endured. The Rhine became the frontier, and the fate of Europe was forever changed.